welcome to this morning's Bambudda Boost, everybody. My name is Sheppard and I'm the founder and CEO of Bambudda Group. We're very lucky today to have Les Moore here. He's an empathy and compassion thought leader. Can you hear me okay, everyone? The sound okay? Yes, awesome. So Les is an empathy and compassion thought leader. He gets results for clients by showing them how to utilize empathy in themselves and others using the power of compassion to take action to improve connection, relationships and performance. So if anything, he's a beautiful human being. I've just had an amazing chat with him this morning, and we're really going to have a look at today and get these tips and advice from Les around what leadership looks like, how we deal with fear and how we put that into action in a positive way, and how, to be a leader that everybody actually wants to follow and believes in. So I'm going to do what I do best today, and I'm going to hand over to the lovely Les.
Thank you.
For him to share some top tips and advice.
Thanks, Anna. See you soon. Yeah, hi everyone, welcome. Today I just want to start with, I'll share my screen so we can get started. The topic of conversation is all about compassionate leadership post-COVID-19. So let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm just getting organised at my end. I'll be with you in a second. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, everybody hear me okay? And the screen is set up. You can see it's fine. Just let me know if you can't. And we'll get into it. Okay, again, thanks again for sharing the space with me today for a little half an hour session. Compassionate leadership post-COVID-19. Firstly, I'd like to share a little bit about me, about what I do, how long I've been on the planet. Obviously, you can see by my recent birthday, I've just turned 50, which has been pretty exciting. It's a bit of a milestone. I'm quite happy that I got there. So I've been in the leadership space for a good 20 plus years, small business, healthcare, nursing. I've held senior roles for the last 10 years, and that's in the healthcare space. The last 5 years, I've been speaking, coaching and educating people around the leadership space and focusing on leading with compassion. I just love sharing compassionate leadership with leaders. Once they realise it's one of the keys to leading people, they embrace it and become motivated by it, which is really exciting. To be compassionate as a leader doesn't mean you're soft. It makes you real. And one of the things of being a male and talking about compassion is, when I grew up, it was all about compassion was more of a weakness from a male perspective, was more about a woman and compassion. And I didn't really embrace that too much. I always was a compassionate person on the inside. Just took a while for that to come out. Leading with compassion is obviously my passion. That's what I love to do. I come from a quite dysfunctional family, and we all have generally one member of our family is dysfunctional, but I don't know too many families that are perfect. Compassion was not high on our agenda growing up, so it wasn't something that I had an association with. But there was one person in my life who was the most compassionate person that I knew, and it was the person that saved us as kids, as a functioning group, and that was my mother, my amazing mother, Phyllis. Phyllis always told me this particular quote was, always see the best in others and they will always see the best in you. I never really understood that until later on as an older adult. always see the best in others and they will always see the best in you. And I always did that, but I always felt that they didn't feel that they were seeing the best in me at that stage. And what I realised later on in life was my mum was giving me that message because she wanted me to always be the best version of me. Bring the best version of me into any situation in your life, whether it be at work, in play, social, wherever it was, bring the best version of you. So this is a picture of Mother's Day recently up at the mountains where my mum's favourite picnic spot was, where we go up and visit her. My mum has not been with us for probably 15 years now. She lost a battle in her early 60s, and we go and visit her quite regularly, and I get up there quite often, have a chat with her, and that's a photo. That's her favourite tree, and that's where her ashes lie. My mum was always the most compassionate person I knew, and she is my compassionate hero, and that's where I get my compassion from. Now, if you want to be a great leader, you need to take care of the people who take care of the people you care for. Now, I learnt this concept from a leadership expert by the name of Simon Sinek, and we've all heard of Simon. And he talks about organisations being successful because of the people that work in those organisations. And it's no different as a leader. If you want to have success in your role and have success in your organisation, you need to take care of the people who take care of the people you care for. So it's all about your customers and your clients. You want plenty of them. You want to make them happy. You want to give them success and results. But you can't do that without quality people within your organisation. And as a leader, it's up to you to grow those people. So focus on the people to get the results you want at the end. It's a key aspect of being a compassionate leader. Now, ultimately, as leaders, we want success. We want to achieve great results. We want great outcomes for ourselves and our organisation. Leaders get results because of people. Exactly like I've alluded to this before, previously, 2 or 3 times with regard to Simon Sinek's quote and how I've utilised that in my compassionate leadership. If you make it about them, at the end of it as a leader, it ends up being all about you. Make it about the people and it ends up being all about you. One of the things as a compassionate leader, we work through people. We work through them individually. We find out a lot about them. We get to know them. We get to know what makes them tick and we help them move forward. So we work for them and then we work with them. So we get through them, for them and with them as a compassionate leader. Now, obviously all this changed. COVID-19 hit us back in March and we went from a completely different way of life one day to it completely transforming when we woke up the next day. It had a global impact. And as a result, we are now working from home more than we've ever worked from home before. Temporary unemployment is at levels never seen before, probably 100 years ago, similar scale. Homeschooling has been quite the eye-opener for parents out there who have got their kids at home, and it's a massive eye-opener for them, and I know it has been for us as well. And isolation and social distancing has been quite impactful as well from an individual basis. And as a result, this has led to fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. There's so much of that out there at the moment throughout the world that it's impacting everybody. Eckhart Tolle, the author of The Power of Now, he talks about living in the now, focusing on the now. Yet as humans, we focus too much and worry about what's coming up in our future. And what Eckhart Tolle talks about is we create what he calls the anxiety gap. Now, this is where a compassionate leader has the greatest impact. They will help fill the anxiety gap with compassion. They will help support and focus and keep us in the now. When we talk about the compassionate leader, we talk about the person that leads with their mind and heals with their heart. All leaders will lead with their mind. They utilize empathy and understanding of what's going on as a leader to move forward. And what the compassionate leader does is they heal with their heart. So they understand and empathize with their mind, but what they do is they work on the individuals and the team's pain points or their needs or their problems, and they take action. That's where the compassion is the important component here as a leader. Compassion is the taking of action on those pain points, on those problems, on those issues that your team or your individuals amongst those teams are having. So they lead with the mind, but then they heal with the heart. Most leaders lead with the mind. They don't heal with the heart. That doesn't necessarily come into it. Let's talk about the evolution of compassionate leadership. The first level of evolution of compassion is connection. The next level is relationship. And then we look at trust, we look at respect, and then we develop influence. Now let's break that down. When we look at connection, this is the first level of empathy. This is where we understand an individual or a team's pain points or their problems or their needs and their wants. Then we step up to our second level of empathy, where we identify what these pain points are, what these needs are, what these wants are. And when you get to the identification level, you start to develop that relationship with the individuals and the team that you're leading. And the third level is the first level of compassion. This is at that point where we take action. We start to take action on the pain points, on the needs and the wants of the teams and the individuals. This is at that level where we are starting to gain trust within our team, in our individuals. The second level of compassion is working with the team to take action on these pain points. This is where, as a leader, you become part of the team. You work side by side, you work shoulder to shoulder, and you're playing a part in the bigger picture. This is at the point where the element that respect from your team and the individuals really represents itself. And then at the very top of the evolutionary ladder is influence. This is where the compassionate leader is at their element or in their element. This is at the point your team knows that you will always be there for them, no matter what happens or how tough it gets. And this is where they become your followers. They love what you do. They admire you, they respect you. Quite often they want to be like you. So that is the evolutionary ladder of a compassionate leader. But remember, as a leader, people don't care how qualified you are or how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how qualified you are or how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's such a true statement, because we're humans. That's how we operate. We love to know that people care about us. A book that was released back in 2019 called Compassionomics. It talks about the science and evidence of caring. It talks about how people who actually show empathy and compassion towards another human actually has impacted on their ability to heal or ability to move forward. There are experiences in this book, and it's obviously it's hard to measure compassion and empathy. Empirically quite difficult, but qualitatively you can measure it quite easily, and it's through people's experiences. And in the book, Stephen Trzeciak and Anthony Mazzarelli talk about the impact compassion has on individuals. Their experiences they have when they go and meet professionals who they feel actually cares about them, actually has a definite vested interest in this person, in wanting them to whether it's heal, be a better person, be a better leader, whatever it is, it shows that makes a difference, because it shows also in a negative aspect. You know yourself, when you go to the doctors or you go to a professional and you feel that they're not present, they're not with you, they're not listening, and you feel that from them, when you leave there with nothing. No motivation. You leave there feeling quite flat and thinking, well, is there any point continuing this? Is it really going to happen? But on the flip side of that is when you go and you visit a professional who actually puts in the effort, the compassion, and they actually care about what it is you care about, you will leave that room feeling amazing. You'll feel pumped and ready to take whatever action they've thrown at you to help you on your way. And Compassionomics talks about those instances when people have gone and visited and spoken to people about what it was happening with them, and they gave them compassion, they provided them with empathy, and it made such a difference. And it didn't heal them, but what it did, it gave them the motivation and that intrinsic amount of energy and effort to go ahead and do something about it. It's a really good book. I recommend reading it because it is so simple, but we take everything in that book for granted, how powerful compassion and empathy really is. Now, what are 3 traits of a compassionate leader? Now, there's plenty of traits of a compassionate leader, but here's 3 I'd like to mention and share with you today. They place people before results and outcomes. This is a definite trait of a compassionate leader. When we talk old school leadership and we talk about chasing results, KPIs, great outcomes, we think about, okay, we put the organisation and their needs first, and we put our staff and their needs second. The compassionate leader flips that on its head, because they know that by working with the people, the outcome you want is the outcome you're going to get, and probably more, because it's the people that work within the organisation who you lead are the ones that are going to get you the outcome. You're not going to do it. They're going to do it. But to be a compassionate leader, that's what they do best. They place the people before the results rather than the results before the people. They genuinely care about the people they lead. That's a no-brainer. I've talked about that throughout Compassionomics, the evolution of the compassionate leader. There's a genuine care about the people they lead, and that is why they're so successful. They love being part of the team. Compassionate leaders lead from within. They lead side by side, shoulder to shoulder. They work with the team. They help the individuals. They work collectively to get things done. They want what's best for everyone concerned, and they know by doing that they'll get the outcomes they're looking for. Now, what I want to share with you is a model that I've put together, which I call the MRI model, compassionate leadership. MRI is the 3 sections of the model, which is mindset, relationships, and influence. But I also use the MRI model as the MRI scanning machine, that machine that can see what's inside that no one else can. And I think that's a great metaphor for a compassionate leader. They can see what else is inside somebody that somebody else can't see. And when you look at that model, we'll go through it quickly with regard to what we've been talking about. And it's all about mindset. It's all about relationships. It's all about influence. And when these 3 areas collide, they create self-awareness, connection, and trust. So this model represents conceptually what a compassionate leader looks like, because they have the ability as the MRI to see inside and find something in someone that no one else is willing to find. So guys, that is the end of the presentation, and obviously thank you for being a part of it. It has been absolutely awesome having you here. Anna, that's Anna. Hi Anna, you're back again.
Yeah.
How are you?
Very good. That was absolutely brilliant. And I loved that. I hadn't seen a lot of all of those models before. So it's so refreshing to hear some new content that's not, you know, so much recycled content.
Yeah.
It was a really, really nice way of doing it. I've got a couple of questions for you, and I'd love to encourage people to put some questions in the chat down here, because I'm sure for everybody else it's been great having you here as well today, Les. Can you give us some quick tips before we finish with regards to what are the biggest mistakes that leaders could possibly make?
Yeah, I think
from your perspective.
From a leader, yeah, probably the biggest mistake they make is not getting to know the individuals and the teams that they lead. And because to me, that's the most important aspect, because, you know, what I've spoken about earlier is that the team are the ones that get the results for you. So you need to be able to understand them. So self-awareness for me is something a leader should focus on predominantly, because having self-awareness creates your ability to communicate and understand other people so much better. And that's one of the mistakes people make. They jump into the leadership role thinking, okay, I'm leading, I now tell people what to do, I'm in control, let's go. And that's not how people function. People function on the back of compassion, obviously caring. They want to know that you are vested in it with them, not telling them what to do. That is really important as a leader.
What advice have you got, Les, with regards to, because what we find a lot is, you know, that we've got leaders, especially in Bambudda even as example, that have gone through, are going through, or have come out the other end of a bit of a burnout as a leader. And to be able to offer that compassion and to be able to be present and to be able to spend that time with their team in a meaningful way is really difficult, because they're just under the pump. What advice would you have for those leaders, you know, to make sure that they don't get to a place of burnout, and, you know, they do lead in a way which creates influence?
Yeah, I think burnout's a big issue, especially for leaders, because they take so much on. They take on a lot of responsibility and accountability, and it really weighs on them heavily. For me, I've experienced this firsthand when I did so much and I would not rest. I would not have a strategy or a game plan to take care of my self-care and wellness. And as a result, I ended up in Melbourne, hospital in Melbourne with a heart issue. And it came out of the blue, and I didn't realise that's what caused it, but that was a related issue to that. And what I'd stopped doing was all the strategies that you need to, you know, we do all these wonderful things for our people. We talk about self-care and wellness. We talk about make sure you take care of yourself away from work. Forget about your work. Do something you love. Do something you enjoy. But quite often as leaders, we neglect that part of our life really seriously. So my tip would be, if you're a leader who is under the pump, you need to start to prioritize some specific time that you spend on you. That takes you away from the job, that takes you away from the pressures and the stresses of what's causing that problem. Now, there's an issue there. Maybe you can't do that because of where you work, your actual manager, they're putting pressure on you. Well, that's a conversation you need to have with them. You need to throw out a bit of Brene Brown, you need to make yourself vulnerable, be a bit courageous and get in there and say, hey, hang on, you know, back yourself. You're good at what you do. Sit down and talk to them and say, hey, I can't cope with this, you know, and value what you do and be honest and open with them. You know, you can't hide that, because eventually, like Melbourne Hospital, it'll catch up to you eventually. So have the strategies, but, you know, the root cause is what you need to find initially. And, you know, that is hard. It is hard to share that stuff with your manager or your direct report, because we have a bit of a relationship and mentality with our superiors that, I don't want to tell them that because I'll think I'm weak. I will think I can't do my job. When in fact, if it's the kind of leader you want to work with, they'll have the opposite reaction. They'll want what's best for you. They'll want you to go, thank you for sharing that. If you don't get that from them, well, seriously, I think that's not the organisation you want to work for. You want to try and take that person's position if you can.
Yeah, that's brilliant, brilliant advice, Les. And I think when it comes to the crunch, in the end, you know, if you're sticking around in an organisation that is riding you that hard and doesn't listen when you try to put those boundaries in place for the sake of a brand, for the sake of, you know, having that stamp, is it worth it in the end? And I think that's a really nice question for you to leave with is, you know, how are you for this next few months going to make sure you can look after yourselves and be compassionate to yourselves so that you can be brilliant for your team?
Like that's exactly right. And COVID-19 is a perfect example of that. You know, we've
got a great question here as well. Sorry, Les.
Yeah, right. Well, like before COVID-19 got here, it was business as usual. We had our usual problems, our usual issues that we faced every day. And it was almost overnight. We woke up and the only thing we thought about was COVID. The uncertainty, the fear, what's happening, where's this going? All the other stuff that we worried about yesterday was gone because we were so taken up by COVID-19 and the impact of that. So what was the question, Anna? Throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to, we've got a great one here, but just elaborating on what you were saying there, it's really juicy this morning, Les.
Yeah.
That COVID-19 scenario, we've got all these leaders frantically trying to put their own life vest on, you know, and oxygen masks while appearing calm and normal in an environment in the workplace and leading teams. So where do you get the balance right with regards to honesty as to your current situation and that authentic leadership and the stability needed to guide a team through uncertainty?
Yeah, I think nothing really changes from a compassionate leadership perspective. It remains the same. And I think if you have a compassionate and empathy angle with your leadership style or your leadership approach, the amount of stress and angst and worry that you have in your leadership role is diminished as a result of that. So for me, it's about trying to utilize some of the traits of a compassionate leader to help you minimize the traits you currently have that are overwhelming for you, and having a look at what you can do to just bring the volume down, tone it down a little bit, and not be so overcome by a situation or a moment. We all manage ourselves differently when the pressure's on. Like that's for everyone. I remember when I was a paramedic, there was paramedics in certain situations under pressure that behaved what we would consider quite irrationally. Then there was other ones who didn't change. They focused and they just stuck at it. And that, I think, from a leadership perspective, that's what you need to do. And that's what you need to show. But then it comes back to making sure you have things in place, strategies, habits, rituals that you do every day that help you refuel yourself, help you bring back. It's almost like emptying the cache from your computer, getting yourself back to that default setting. Okay, give yourself it gives you a clear head, gives you a nice solid base to work from, and you can start making some better, clearer decisions.
Thanks, Les. We've got one last question from Sam. Les, if you were working with or for a leader who deeply lacks compassion, which we've all worked for one of them or two, haven't we? Yeah. How can you help highlight?
Sorry, Annie, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Sorry, we have some internet issues here today. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you.
The final question, if you were working with or for a leader who deeply lacks compassion, how can you highlight that they are lacking some of these skills? So a really challenging one, really.
Tough question. And yeah, I think it's about being brave enough to talk about that with them. I think that they need someone. And is this a person who's their manager or someone, a leader?
Or working with or for a leader?
Yeah, I would definitely have that discussion, share that with them. But for me, like I said before, you have to really love your job a lot to tolerate a leader who is not, it's not all about compassion, but compassion helps. And you need a leader that's going to work with you, not against you, and make you feel like you are part of the organisation, part of the bigger picture, and that you are a genuinely part of it. Not, you know, they're not the, you know, I've worked for leaders who, you know, delegate from the top, and this is let's work as a team and do it my way. That's their attitude. But we spoke about this earlier, and you know, if you can't do something about it in that particular organisation, I really think if you've got something special to offer, you need to take it to a place where they're going to utilise what skills and talents that you have. Don't waste them with a company that's not, you know, giving you what you want. I know that's easy to say and easy to do.
It is, and I mean, the question you have to ask yourself in those situations, if there is repeated behaviour that's inappropriate or, you know, unreasonable, that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're dealing with a leader like that, you're dealing with a bully directly.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a HR, that's a whole different ball game. Yeah. But you as a person, if you want to be the best leader you can be, you need to be surrounded by people that are like that. And you need to build people like that so they create a similar nurturing, empathetic and compassionate environment that is just a pleasure to work in. Like, there's no better place to be until you find your sweet spot. But I tell you, if you keep looking for it, you're going to find it. It's out there.
Well, I feel like we've definitely found our sweet spot with you this morning, Les. We definitely went over a bit of time, but we didn't want to stop. So we're like, whatever. So can we give him a round of applause? Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Lots of love to you today, Les.
50 more to come.
Brought to us by Zarina Robertson Photography. So we're really glad that she sent you in our direction. We're never going to let you go now, by the way. And we do have another brilliant boost tomorrow. It's a bit of girl power. We're going to be talking about the secrets of women in leadership from an interesting perspective. So do tune in for that. Sign up, share the love, tell everybody who'd be interested. And we'll see you again at 10 a.m. Lots of love to you, Les. And thank you so much.
Have a lovely day. Bye.